Hello and welcome to Sketchplanations, the podcast. We discuss the big ideas and compelling facts explained within the enormous collection of sketches at sketchplanations.com to help provide fodder for your own interesting conversations. I'm engineer and broadcaster Rob Bell, and with me in the studio are my friends of almost 30 years. Creator of Sketchplanations, Jono Hey, and entrepreneur and past winner of The Apprentice, Tom Pellereau. Hello once again, dear fellows.
Hello, 30 years old, yes indeed.
30 years old?
Of 30 years.
Met at the hospital.
This time we're talking about knowing your dashes, which, without any context, I do appreciate is possibly quite a curious little collection of words. So let's turn straight away to the guy who sketches what he knows, or at least what he's recently learned through rigorous and punctilious research. Jono, what's all this about, knowing your dashes? We're talking punctuation, aren't we?
Yeah. No, this is quite an old sketch for something I learned actually when I was doing all the typography and things on web pages primarily.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Of all my sketches, this is the most tabley. It's really a table. I'm introducing these subtleties in different concepts, which not everybody has come across, although some of them have more recently come to light more widely.
It's a 4x3 table.
Yes, that would be it. But the different types of dashes, which is very subtle to the uninitiated, is a hyphen, an N dash,
Spelt E-N.
spelled E-N, and an M dash,
Spelt E-M.
spelled E-M. And I quite like it because the second column in my table is 3 different lines, which are, I mean, you can see that they're different, but you have to look closely that they're different.
I already love the subtlety of this sketch, Sorry, carry on. I am absolutely swimming in it. I love it.
You could be forgiven for thinking that all dashes that you see in text are the same, but it turns out they are not all the same.
And when you're responsible for writing that on a website that is going to be seen by thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people,
Well, that would be nice.
you want to get it right.
Then maybe you should get it right. But more to the point, if you edit journals or newspapers or typeset books, then you should know this stuff. And so, I'm coming in from the uninitiated to the slightly initiated, but there are some people for whom, they take this very seriously, no doubt.
Can you then explain the difference between when you should use the hyphen, the short dash, the N dash, the kind of medium length, and the M dash, the longest of the 3 lengths?
Yeah. And I could actually talk at length about each of these. So hopefully we get the option to do that.
Jono, this is free form. This is a podcast. We go as long as we want, as long as we need.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but the first one that
here we go.
people are familiar with generally is the hyphen, right? Like you grew up with a hyphen.
Yep.
And you see it in books, and a hyphen does a couple of things. One is if you've got a paragraph and your line wraps and you're in the middle of a long word, you can use a hyphen to indicate that you're still continuing that word and you're going to come round on the other side and carry on with your word.
Can I make a point on that? Because when I was a kid and I used to write thank you letters, right, and you've not really...
You don't do that now.
Probably thank you emails more now. But when you're a kid and you're writing your thank you letters and you're not used to writing a letter, and so you'd start a word and your writing's all over the shop anyway, and it would go towards the edge of the page. So not even at the end of a syllable, just at some point when you ran out of space on the page for that word, you'd do a hyphen and then finish it on the next word, which probably isn't the correct use. Do you not supposed to do it at between syllables in a word?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah. No, I just do it when you run out of space. I mean, we're so used to working with computers these days; it all just happens automatically.
It does,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
And in fact, once you had fully justified text, you tend not to run into it at all very often because it will adjust the spacing of the words for you, so that you never have hyphens. So you don't actually see it that much anymore.
That's just one use of a hyphen, isn't it? There are other uses, or at least one other.
Yeah, and so the classic use of a hyphen is tying together 2 words that are intimately related.
Classic.
Exactly. So you might have self-study. It's one thing, and I'm putting these together as one single concept.
Can we think of some other? I mean, you've done some good examples in the sketch there. Tie-in, toll-free.
Yeah.
They do come together. They're almost one word, right?
Would you like some more?
Yeah, go on.
I do have some more.
Because I really enjoy using this because I think I understand it quite well. So when I am writing, I do revel in the fact that I can use this. I'll say in inverted commas correctly.
All right, I'll throw some out.
You're right, Tommy.
Time bomb, laughing stock, ice cream, crowdfunding, cross-sell, aircraft carrier, call up, climb down, grown up, newfound, short-lived, war chest, witch hunt. Anyway, we could go on.
Well, I'll probably fade that out in the edit. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Finish the episode with me reading this gently into the background. Yeah,
it's lovely. It's soporific, I'd say.
Yeah. I thought actually, because while we're on hyphens, I think it's quite interesting. There's a little progression, I think, in concepts of how they get used. And so, for example, wildlife used to be wild space life, and then it was wild hyphen life, and now it becomes wildlife.
One word.
As one word. As these things become more and more well accepted. I thought, good example, this podcast is produced by Bellboy Productions. Bellboy used to be separate, and then it was hyphenated, and now it's acceptable as one word.
Right.
Bellboy. There you go. And actually, I think a really relevant one is well-being. So well-being used to be two words, and then it became a thing of its own right and was hyphenated together. And I think if you search for usages of well-being versus well-being as a single word, well-being by itself is growing as a concept gets more established. So it doesn't need the hyphen anymore.
There is this natural progression in language, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'd agree with you based on those examples there, yeah.
You can also have triple hyphens. You probably can have quadruples, I don't know. I was thinking of some triple hyphens like No Man's Land.
Good.
Or second in command.
Oh, that's lovely.
Second in command is one thing by itself. And so you hyphenate them all. You have two hyphens, yeah. So you have a triple word together. And then I read this great example on a website of where the hyphen is critical for understanding. So if I say $5 bills.
Yes, bang, great.
You don't know if it's a $5 bill or it's $5 bills.
Yes.
And actually you might be able to tell that if I say it, I'll say $5 bills or something, or I'll say $5 bills. But if I just write it,
I don't know what you're talking about. I've just been shortchanged, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so that's hyphens.
Tommy, are you still with us? How are you?
So it might come as no surprise to you that I had no idea that there were three different types of dashes or hyphens.
But nor did I, Tommy, before the sketch.
Good.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear I'm not that uneducated in these ways. And I am really not a fan. And I kind of deliberately never use them, almost, in any of the three different contexts. And I now use AI quite a lot to help me draft things and write things. And I have to always put in my prompt to AI, don't use hyphens. Because AI loves using hyphens and these three different types the whole time. And everyone knows that I would never use those. So it really makes it obvious. It'd be a massive giveaway that it wasn't me who wrote that email if it's got hyphens and stuff like that, because that's not the sort of level of punctuation I'm able to articulate.
That's
so
good,
I have to say,
Tommy.
Yeah, I like that draft. Please rewrite it without the hyphens. And I even have it as one of my command prompts that's always in there. And if he puts them in, I'm like, excuse me, I've told you once before, remove those. Probably still one of the best ever products, the Makeup Brush Cleaner. Makeup, which is both. And has gone through probably this progression. And so I remember we had massive debates about whether it should be, on packaging. When we're printing at one stage a run of 200,000 pieces of packaging, should it be make dash up? Should it be makeup? Because it was the Makeup Brush Cleaner. And it's like, we don't want to get this wrong. We know that people would take this tip. And I think in the end we're like, well, for SEO, we just need to just put them together because that seems to be more commonly how it's written. So
just doing what other people do, because otherwise they won't find you.
Yeah, otherwise they won't find us. So we kind of went for what we thought was probably the simpler, but I also had no idea that things progress through.
I've just learned that as well tonight. I kind of observed that via Jono's observations as well, yeah.
From the last place I worked, we had a lot of part-time, and there was forever in every page and bit of the app. We had part-times in all different places, and my mission was to comb through and be consistent.
Wow.
One of my favourite books about English is the book called Strunk and White, The Elements of Style. And I remember somebody in my design lab said, you have to have Strunk and White, which I thought was very strange because he was a designer and software engineer. And so I went and got it, and it's really cool. It has all sorts of things about this, and very opinionated about writing English. But he talks about hyphens. He had the wildlife and the bellboy examples. But he also said, he had this passage, the hyphen can play tricks on the unwary, as it did in Chattanooga when two newspapers merged, the News and the Free Press. Someone introduced a hyphen into the merger, and the paper became the Chattanooga News Free Press.
With no news in it.
Yeah. Dodgy
Nothing
use of a
there.
hyphen by not being careful about it.
We've done the hyphen. Everyone knows when it's supposed to be used. Let's move on to the next one, the median length dash. This one's called the N.
It's called the N dash, E-N, yeah.
Right.
I quite like this one, and actually it comes up quite a lot. I put just here in the table that it's concepts related by distance, but it has quite a lot of use cases where you're connecting a range of things. So if you write pages 10 to 12 or page 147 to 148, you should actually be using an N dash instead of a hyphen. You're not connecting them as one thing. You're saying it's between this one and this one.
Yeah.
Same with, May to September, or you might have ages 8 to 11. If you had the restaurant meals are £20 to £30, you would use an N dash. If you said the workshop is from 9 to 12 in the morning, you would use an N dash.
Okay.
If you said we're open Monday to Friday, you would use an N dash and not a hyphen. So if you could say like from X to Y, you would use an N dash.
And how do we write an N dash in any program?
If you're on a Mac, it's Option hyphen,
Try that now.
which you can give a go. And Windows, this is, I don't know, it's a bit of a harder one. It's Alt 0150, 0150.
How do you do Alt 0150?
I'm not.
Do I hold Alt and then type 0150?
I don't know. Can you test it for me? And we'll cut this so that we have the right answer.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
0150. Yeah, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah, so it's easy on a Mac. Option hyphen.
I've just done it. It was delightful.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
I had to go through Control, Alt, and Command to find out which one is. What did you say? Option.
Option, I think. Yeah.
Option is Alt, I think, as it turns out. Yeah, it is. Good. Well, that's clear.
Good.
Listeners, I hope you're following along.
It turns out there's a bunch of other places where technically you should be using an N dash.
Yeah,
because
go on.
You've got connections.
This is good stuff.
So I gave the examples which I first learned it with, which is like May to September or page numbers. But also if you were doing a London to Paris flight, for example,
Yep.
or the North-South divide, or a East-West trade route, you're
right?
going between these two things.
I'd be really tempted to stick a hyphen in those last two, North, South, East, West.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? As would most of us.
Yeah.
Especially as no one knows how to type it. But we'll come back to that.
I know how to type it, Tom. Just not on your computer. Also, things like I was told where you got two sides. So you might have a teacher-student relationship. It's not a hyphen like it's a teacher-student, like a thing.
Yeah.
It's a relationship
Teacher
between
to
the teacher and the
student.
student.
Yeah.
Or a parent-child or a buyer-seller agreement.
Gosh.
You should use that in your contracts, Tom. Nature-nurture debate and a cost-benefit analysis. I was actually told that cost-benefit analysis should potentially be an N dash because it's between the two.
Should potentially be.
Yeah. Well, I'm not 100% sure about that one.
That's right. We'll leave that one up in the air. That's good. That's let us know.
Similarly, if you've got named partnerships, there are some examples of like, Watson Crick model or Lennon McCartney songs. You're not hyphenating them or giving one of them precedence. You're just saying like it belongs to these, between these two.
Yes, it's between these two. I think that's a good definition for me, like between these two.
So scores and results. So if you said somebody won 3-1 or it was 6-4 in a set.
Yeah.
And also if you have things like, if you had EU-UK negotiations, you would actually put it, these are between these two.
I'm in now.
It's not EU-UK as an entity by itself.
This is great. That is lodged in my head, Jono. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's clear.
Clarifying relationships. So all sorts of places you can actually use an N dash and nobody will even know that you're doing it.
Love it.
Okay.
There we go.
So in Word, if you type 10 10 space hyphen space 12, it will automatically then turn it into an N dash. And that was going to be my next question is, should you have spaces to the either side?
Good question.
I heard that there was variations by country for that one. And so US, UK, English might do different things. And I think in the UK, we often set things with space, N dash space, whereas in America, they tend to use the M dash, the longer one. But I'm not typesetting books on either side of the Atlantic, so I don't know. But I did use M dashes in my book, which was by an American printer.
Right, come on, let's keep it moving. The M dash, EM.
Yeah, so the M dash is the longest.
The longest.
Of the three, and it is like adding a new thought in a sentence. I heard a nice definition of it, which is kind of like interrupting yourself.
Yeah.
Stronger than a comma, less formal than a colon, and more relaxed than parentheses.
Oh, I love it. Or brackets in the UK.
Yeah, or brackets, sorry. So it'd be like his first thought on getting out of bed, if he had any thought at all, was to get back in again. And that middle bit...
Yeah, if he had any thought at all.
Could you hear the M dashes?
Yeah, I heard them. They landed heavily. Lovely.
Yeah, good.
And does the M dash go before and after?
It does, yeah. And I also have my other style guide here. I have the Economist style guide. I'm sure you have one on your desk, Tom.
Okay, yeah.
It says you should only use, like, ideally no more than one in a paragraph. And definitely it gets really confusing if you use more than one set in a sentence, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You don't know what's sort of parenthetical anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or what's the side thought and what's the real thread of the sentence. So just one set. But I quite like it. I had an English teacher in secondary school, and he said at the time, it's called Mr. Broomhall, he said, brackets are for maths, commas are for English.
Did he say anything about the M dash?
He didn't tell us about the M dash, but we were only in secondary school English. But I think commas, if you're trying to introduce sort of side thoughts like that, are actually your sentence can get quite complicated, because you're following this little thread and then you go to this side thread and then you come back to the main one. But you're also using the commas for like pauses and breaks and your breaths as you're reading. And so I think an M dash is a really nice way to say this is a slightly different added or adjusted thought, which is relevant, but is not part of the main thread of the sentence. So I use them, if you've read my newsletter, a fair bit.
I've started using them, and I don't know why, but I have started using them a lot in the last couple of years, I reckon, in casual messaging, like emails or like WhatsApp messages. Although I'm not using the M dash, I'm using the hyphen, but I'm using that hyphen in place of an M dash to go into that secondary thought. I really enjoy using them. But what I often do by the end of that secondary thought, so I start it with the hyphen, which I should be an M dash, but then by the end of it, I've forgotten, and I normally finish it with a comma and carry on again. So it's not clear. And then if I do remember, I go back and go, hang on, let's be clear. This is the secondary thought in here. It needs another M dash at the end of it.
Yeah. I wanted to mention to somebody on my team, I was like, because sometimes in chat things like Slack or Teams or whatever.
Real casual, just
casual stuff.
Yeah.
People would write a lot of stuff in brackets. And I was like, well, nobody speaks in brackets. That doesn't make any sense. And it kind of bugs me when in a book, if you're reading a book and you're reading a paragraph and then there's this big bit in brackets. And to me, it's either important enough that you include it as the main bit or put it at the bottom of the page where it doesn't get in the way. Because I'm going to read it regardless. So why put it in a bracket? And I said to it, I was like, nobody speaks in brackets. So we shouldn't be messaging in brackets. And I think I was petrified of every message that you sent me after that.
That's very good. It's very
like
good.
writing these brackets and deleting them before he sent it, probably. I didn't mean that. People, you can send messages however you like.
Can I throw something in about where I've understood the names M dash and N dash come from? It's similar to what you said, Jono, but it was from the printing industry, and it refers to the width or the length, if you like, of that dash. And an M dash was the width of a capital M in printing, and the N dash is the width of a capital N. M is wider than an N.
Yeah, so I have read that too. And I don't think it's the real answer. I think it's not far off. And so, an N is about half of an M, lettered widths.
I'd say it's like 2/3.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, but depending on the font. And I think
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the idea also, was that it was more about the the height of the blocks when they were typesetting with the letters, and less particularly about the width of your M's and N's. But it is actually quite convenient. I mean, it's not a bad way to remember it, if you ask me like that. It's an M, and an M is quite a bit wider than the N. I have read that explanation as well, but I don't think it's the real answer.
Yeah.
Because actually M's, as in an EM, is a unit of space in typography. And so you can actually set a web page in M's instead of pixels, let's say, and everything can be spaced in proportionally in M's instead. So an M exists as its own measurement.
Gotcha. Can I ask another question off the back of this? We've got the hyphen, we've got the dash, we've got the M dash. What is the underscore all about?
Fine question. A coding thing, right? I don't know why you have an underscore as well, but why not? I suppose somebody came up with it. Could have a top one as well.
I did actually look into this.
Oh, go on then.
Apparently it came about originally with mechanical typewriters, and it used to be used to go back and underline words that you'd type them out, but then you'd just kind of slide your roll back and then you'd get along to it, to the words that you wanted to underline, and then you'd just use underscore to go underneath it. And it used to be known as a low line or a low dash.
Yeah.
That's apparently where it came from. And then with early computers came around, it was, you didn't used to be able to save a file name with a space in it. It got borrowed to go in place of a space. And I think in modern usage, we've just kind of sometimes we've carried that on.
If you're a programmer and you've got a million variable names and you don't want to imply that they're the same concept, but you want to separate these words, then you can use an underscore.
Right. I used to have an underscore in my my first web-based email address.
Rob_Bell.
No, Captain _Bellend.
Is that page still up?
I think it still exists. I don't use it, so feel free to send me emails there. They won't get read.
.com?
We don't need to go into that any more than we have.
Rob, can I ask, because I was curious about this as I was thinking about dashes and various types of dashes and hyphens. And when you're writing text on a page and you're using all the elements of grammar to try and get across how you're, what it means and how you're supposed to say it. And you've done loads of voiceover work. And it struck me when I was thinking of, you say, I don't say an M dash. I just say the interceding thought, the thing that I just interrupted myself with.
You imply it through speech, right?
But how do you do that? Like if you're doing a voiceover for something, for a TV program, let's say, you are presumably quite well trained at like looking at some text and going, oh, this one I need to say it a bit differently, or this is an adjoining thought, and I'm gonna raise my tone up here or inflect on this sentence.
Yeah, I think the secret to that is many takes.
Direction from the producer.
Yeah, whereas as you read it through it, you probably get 3/4 of the way through. Go, hang on, I've read that wrong. Let's come back and have another run at that one. Yes, I don't feel like I use or that we use different types of dashes, hyphen, N dash or M dash, to imply different means of speech. I think the subject pretty well because you're doing a voiceover on it and you know where you're going. And if you don't get it right, then you come back and do it again.
Yeah, I guess what I meant was I was thinking about, I came up with an example. So if I was to say M dashes are a vehicle, I probably use too many of them, that let you interrupt yourself mid-thought.
Oh, did you? So that I probably use too many of them.
As a written thing, I could put M dashes around that.
Lovely.
But I think when I'm reading it, I said it differently. Like I'm reading this sentence and then I can see that this is a different thought.
Yeah, you changed completely.
I changed my, how I'm saying this thing so that thought is connected by itself and separate from the main sentence.
So that is the performance of that piece of written prose that you've got in front of you, right? And that M dash, yes, whether or not that M dash helped you or because you wrote it, that. I'm not sure, but that I have to say, Jono, that was a really well performed piece of script. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think about all the subtle ways that we actually do that all the time. Because I'm written on a page, you need to try and let people know that this is kind of how you would say this.
Yes.
This belongs separately. And that's why these things exist.
You're right. I think the big question for this episode, and it is a genuine question, is how much does any of this really matter? To me, I can be quite a pedant when it comes to grammar in certain senses, but obviously I've been getting this wrong for ages. And I appreciate that I've been misusing the hyphen when I should have been using different dashes, both N and M dashes. I guess it's interesting to know that there are these three distinct symbols for three distinct situations. But I'm trying to wonder now whether I will change my behaviors with it just because it's so easy just to pop in a hyphen. Jono, I think your example, you've written a book. You've had a book published and printed thousands and thousands of times over. So I think if I was doing that, I would want it to be grammatically perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. And like Tom, your makeup example is quite reasonable as well. You know,
agreed.
We spoke with Mark Forsyth recently. And
so Mark Forsyth is an etymologist.
Yeah, and there's all sorts about language. Makeup's a great example. Like you can make up with somebody and it's a completely different thing than makeup. And I know that obviously you're using it in context where it doesn't make any difference, and the context about the fact that you're applying makeup is obviously that's going to tell you what it is. But when it's really important to make sure that something is really understood, it's probably worth using the right thing to get it right.
Yeah.
I think a good example, which we've not talked about before, is the Oxford comma. Oxford comma is like the comma and the last one of a list of like three things, let's say.
Which I think AI does quite a bit of as well, doesn't it? Depending on your AI voice.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the classic example there was dedication in a book. It was like, to my parents, Bill Gates and God.
Yeah.
Or to my parents, Ayn Rand and God was the example that I'd read. And obviously your parents are not those people. And so you should, if you have a comma there, it's like, I'm dedicating it to three people. I'm dedicating it to my parents, I'm dedicating it to Ayn Rand, and I'm dedicating it to God. And there was a law case around that where in the benefits package or whatever, that they didn't have a comma, or they did have a comma, and they had to do a $5 million overtime payment. So occasionally, if you're a lawyer, this stuff probably really matters.
Yeah.
And I think in general, I think it's a really interesting challenge. Like if you look at a page of text, it's really plain. Like a web page is interesting, right? A web page, it doesn't really matter whether I use an M dash or an N dash on a web page, because you can see that I'm listing the hours of the shop because it's in the section called the hours of the shop.
Yeah.
And I can have a title called the hours, and, you know, I can lay it out in a table and all this stuff.
The context is all there for you to absorb.
And size and layout and all these things. But in a page of text, you've only got a few grammatical tools to try and make sure that your message is communicated correctly. Yeah. And hyphens, N dashes and M dashes are a few of these. You've got commas, colons, semicolons, quotes, but you don't have very many. And we can say an awful lot of things and mean an awful lot of things. I think it's quite nice to get it right, but obviously I'm not going to come after you if you don't.
No, please do. In my any WhatsApps from now on. No, but
on your door.
I said, Jono, I mean, I think as long as you're understood, right? That's the main thing.
Yeah.
But it's really lovely, and I really appreciate this chat. To know that you've got those tools in your toolbox is lovely.
And Jono, you've been able to give us examples showing why these things matter or why they are helpful. Matter is maybe a different thing. Why they are useful to be able to describe things in different ways, or to be able to write a sentence more in a way that you might speak.
Yeah, I think so. I think the M dash is quite useful in text, and where I've got a range of things, I'll use an N dash. But I think the N dash, that one is almost indistinguishable from a hyphen. I'll definitely give you that one.
What else would anyone like to add before we round off on knowing your dashes?
Tom, it's really good that you bring up the AI example and you tell it that not to do hyphens, because one of the reasons why I thought this would be a fun sketch to discuss is because M dashes, which were little known, I would generally say, suddenly came into prominence because AI would always do its responses using M dashes. Everybody was like, hang on, most people are not using M dashes in the text, because part of the thing is most people, A, don't know it exists, and B, know how to type it or where you should use it. But AI was essentially trained on, huge corpuses of text, and very often it was edited text, not like just chats and emails and messages back and forth. Casual text, and
it was taught these rules and how to imply them. So
it learned
the human would want perfection, no doubt.
Exactly. So it was doing what is good English, I suppose, but that was better English than most people were writing. And so all of a sudden, it was a mega tell that people had used AI because it was using M dashes everywhere. And for someone like me, that was quite annoying because I was using M dashes. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks I'm using AI. No,
You've lost your USP, Jono.
I have. It was all about the M dashes before, but now everybody's doing them.
Give us away your secret. How do you type an M dash on a Windows or a Mac?
This is a brilliant question, Tommy, because like hyphen, easy.
No
I can see it there right now. It's next to the 07890 hyphen. Bang. In it goes. Easy.
So some programs, if you do exactly what you encountered, Tom, if you do a double hyphen and a space, that will give you the M dash.
Yes.
Ah.
If you're on Mac, and I do this all the time, it's Option Shift hyphen.
No, I can't be bothered with that.
Are you kidding me?
I'd just say that it does vary by country. And obviously, it also varies by language.
Huh?
I was often quite surprised that text in different languages punctuate very differently. I just assumed there was always one way of punctuating.
You're right. Yeah.
And so if you read like novels in French, they won't always put quotes around the speech, for example. Whereas you always do in English. And in France, you'll use a decimal point as the comma in a string of numbers. You know, like 1,000, it would be 1.000 instead of 1,000.
Oh, it causes me massive issues when we get information back from our retailers in Europe. We have to have code that converts it all back from dots to commas. Oh,
Because don't they use a comma to go into decimal places?
yeah.
Exactly. So they're actually reversed, and you could look at a number and think it's a completely different one. So my point about the hyphens and that N dashes and M dashes, it varies by country, because countries and languages do very different things.
Thank you.
Good. Well, listen, personally, I'm absolutely delighted that I now know which symbol is which. The one question I do have, though, is which one is used in Morse code? I'll leave that one out there. Jono, Tommy, thank you once again. And thank you all for listening. Jono, did you want to say something about that?
Well,
do you know which one it is for Morse code?
No, I don't know. It's a great question. This is a bit mad. But I did hear that a minus is maybe different from all of these, technically speaking.
Oh, what?
Because a minus has to be nicely in line with the equals and the times and the divide, and is centered in its space alongside the width of the numbers. So you could potentially throw in a minus here as well. I don't even know how to type that.
Well, now that I'm looking at it, the hyphen on my keyboard is right up there with plus and equals.
Yeah.
So it's probably a minus rather than a hyphen.
I've been typing a minus all this time.
I could be a couple of pixels out. Oh my gosh.
It's EU minus UK relations. Oh.
We'll leave it there. Tommy, Jono, thank you once again, and thank you all for listening. Until next time, go well, stay well. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All music on this podcast series is provided by the very talented Frank Cinelli, and you can find many more tracks at frankcinelli.com.